Okay, so I downloaded and installed RapidMiner, and this is what it looks like. And we're going to be comparing it with Weka. Now, RapidMiner looks a lot nicer than Weka, but let's also look at Weka. So there's a package manager. Okay, so here's Weka. So Weka has various interfaces, and this is what's called the Weka Explorer. And in Weka, you can open up data through the Explorer. Now, you can also look at the knowledge flow interface. And we use that in much the same way that we use the Weka interface. That is, we do something like this, and then we drag these onto, if I can, or maybe you have to double click it, and then click it like that, and you can drag these on. Now that's the way we're going to use RapidMiner as well. So let's go back to RapidMiner. And we have a bunch of sort of different panels or windows in RapidMiner. So you can see there's a kind of panel here, there's a panel here, I guess you call this a big panel. Here's another panel, and another panel. And probably, like most programs, you can control what panels you see, and usually that's done in programs in the View menu. So let's just see what that has here. So here you can see views, and you have different views. So if we switch, we'll see different things. You can set up a custom panel. You can talk about which panels you want to show. And here I can see there's a check mark here, there's a check mark here, and here. So that was the help one is over here, and the parameters is also checked. That's over here, and so on. The repository, I think, was over here. So anyway, we can control which ones we want to show. And if you don't see a panel that you want to see, you can choose to show it. For example, I guess we could click on here, and then we'd see that. And then if you want to get rid of it, you can close it. So that's pretty much standard in a lot of programs, that the View menu controls what you can see. Okay, now let's look at this one called Tutorials. That might be a good place to start. And we could click View All, but let's just see what we have here. 1 through 5. So this is the welcome screen. So RapidMiner has a lot of features to offer. You can see a lot of stuff here, so we want to sort of go through it step by step, otherwise we'll kind of get lost. You will learn how to use RapidMiner Studio. So this is called RapidMiner Studio. So there are other ways to access some of the tools in RapidMiner. Probably some of them are on the web or in the cloud, as we say. So anyway, you can, to perform basic data science techniques, such as accessing data, transforming data, building statistical models. We will use data describing, so they're going to go through a tutorial here, and they're going to use some data that they have about the Titanic passengers. So you've probably heard of the Titanic. It was a huge ship that unfortunately crashed into some ice and sank. So they're going to show us how to use RapidMiner by using some data set about this Titanic ship, probably about the incident when the ship sank. So they say, here's an explanation. Each tutorial is broken into several steps to teach you the basics of RapidMiner Studio, how to use this thing. Each step lists specific actions to perform, plus an explanation of why those actions matter. Notice the dotted lines preview in the process panel. So here, this is the process panel, and they're talking about these dotted lines here. So this is supposed to help us do the tutorial. This shows you the process you will be building in that tutorial. So I guess we're gonna, I don't know, something like this. As I said, we can do this kind of thing in Weka. In other words, you can build a process here. So we'll see what that means, but that's what we're doing here as well. So let's click here, next. So first thing we want to do if we're going to do some data science is we need to have some data. So here in step 2, or part 2 of this tutorial, we have to retrieve the data. So this is going to be data about the Titanic training. So here we had what's called the repository panel, and repository basically means where you're, it's like the file browser in Windows or the file explorer. So if I do something like this, well, like that, this is the file explorer. So this is the file explorer that they have, a little file explorer right here, and we can we can look at different files. We can navigate through it. Now, I don't know exactly where this is, so it kind of depends on where you chose to install RapidMiner, but typically it would be in the under the programs file. So somewhere in there we have these. Depending on how you installed it, you would have these files here, and if we click on samples, you'll see there's data, and you'll see there's various data files here, or sample data files, I should say, and probably we're going to use one of these in this tutorial. So they say find the repository. This is the repository panel on the left of the screen, so that's here. And open the folders sample, so here, and then data, so here, I did that already, and drag the Titanic training dataset and drop it in the process. This is the process panel in the middle of the screen. So let's try and do that. So we go to this one, the training one. I guess there's 3 of them here actually. So anyway, let's go drag this one. This is one they told us to drag. So drag it into the middle of the screen. Okay, so we did that. So the explanation is that we did a good job. You have just added your first, what this is called an operator, to the RapidMiner Studio, namely what they call the retrieve operator. So this is the way that you get to access data using this RapidMiner layout. So you have to drag this data, you find whatever data set you have. So you probably are not going to eventually want to work with their sample data sets. You're going to have your own data. Now they always encourage us to sort of store it in somewhere in here instead of just storing it anywhere in any folder on your computer. Apparently RapidMiner works better when the data is stored in here somewhere. So we can just put our data somewhere in this repository. So we'll see how to do that. And then once we have it, we can just do what we just did, which is drag it onto this panel. And again, they call this an operator. So we're going to have many different operators on here. Just like in Weka, we also had, I guess maybe they're also called operators here. We have an operator here. So, in mathematics, an operator is like addition or subtraction or multiplication or division. But anyway, we can just say it's in here. It's just something that will do something. In this case, this is going to indicate the data that we want, or it's going to access the data that we want. So here they say operators perform actions. In this case, it retrieves data from the repository. This is the repository. Now let's see what you can do with it. Okay, so let's go to next. So they talk about building your first process. Well, we don't know what that means, but let's see. As a RapidMiner analyst, you create processes by adding and connecting operators. So we have an operator here, but we're going to have more than just this operator. Operators are connected together via their ports. So this is called the port. And this only has one port on it. In fact, let's move this over to here, just so that we put it where they indicated. Now you don't really have to put these in any particular place, but I guess to make it look neat or organized, you might want to put it in a certain place. You have to connect them in a certain way, but you don't have to put them in a certain place. So we'll see what that means. So anyway, they said operators are connected together via their ports. Okay, so we have a port here, and in fact we have a kind of port here, and we also have a port here. So these are called ports. Okay, so the activity here is to connect the output port. So you can see they have this kind of short name for it, out. The output port connect the output port of the Retrieve Titanic training operator with the results port here. This is called the results port, RES, on the right side of the panel. So let's try and do that. Make a connection by either dragging a line between the ports, or by first clicking on one port and then on the other. So let's try that. Just we first click here, and then we click here. Okay, so that's what they mean by making a connection. So we'll see what that does. Explanation. Excellent, you've built your first process. Okay, it's a pretty simple process, but anyway, in RapidMiner Studio. We can now look at the output of the retrieve operator. Whenever you want to see the output of an operator, make sure it's connected to the res port. So whenever you want to see the output of an operator, so if we want to see the so-called output of this operator, we have to connect it to the res port. Now I guess there's another res port here in case we want to connect something else. Okay, let's click next and see what they mean. So running processes. So after we've connected the elements of our process, we can hit the run button to view the output. So they say click the run on the top left to execute this process. So this is the run button up here. So let's click it, and there. So now we see it, the results, and you should think of this as kind of like a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet. So we have different columns in our spreadsheet, and you can scroll over and see the rest of the columns here. So the names of these columns are row number, so these are the row numbers, and this is whether the passenger, this is the data about the Titanic, it's actually a data set about the passengers, and this is whether or not they survived or not. And the next column is their age, and then the next column is the passenger class. So on the boat you could be first class or second class or third class and so on. The next is their sex, how many siblings they had, the number of parents, I guess, or children that accompany them maybe, and what's this? The passenger fare, I guess, is how much they paid. Okay, so let's go back to the tutorial. It says, nice, you have run your first process in RapidMiner Studio. When you click Run, the operators in the process will perform their actions. So there wasn't too much in terms of action here, but RapidMiner executes the process and shows the data connected to the result port. In the center of the results view, so I guess up here we have the results view. You can see our raw data about the Titanic passengers, such as their family size or age. On the Statistics tab, so here, we get a statistics summary, which provides useful information. For example, 349 passengers survived the Titanic accident. So in other words, we have this green column here. This is how many people survived, but we don't know the count of how many did and how many didn't. But maybe if we click the Statistics tab, it might tell us that. So it might give us a kind of summary of this data. And they said that 349 passengers survived. If you get different results, please make sure that you drag the correct data set, Titanic training. So if we had used a different data set, then presumably we probably wouldn't get the same. We wouldn't have the same data, so this wouldn't probably be 349 that survived. Let's click on this to see those statistics. Okay, so here we have, here, there were 349 yeses, or 349 yes, they did survive. And here the age, the average age, if we can get that, 29 years, passenger class, and so on. And here they have this kind of weird, what we call data types. So the number of siblings is, of course, a number. And in fact, it's an integer. But the passenger fare is not an integer, right? The cost, let's go back to the data. So the passenger fare, this is the fare, $211.338. Well, that's definitely not an integer. So we wouldn't say that this data, this type of data, is integer valued. It's whatever they called it. They call it numeric. Now, these number of siblings, you don't have 2.8 siblings. You have 2 or you have 3. So these are integers, but these are not. So number of siblings would probably be integer valued. Okay, and then this is kind of non-standard, this stuff, like polynomial and binomial. For these, this is not typical for indicating data types. This is very typical, but this is not binomial. But of course, they list the sex as either male or female. There's only 2 possibilities that they list, and so that's where the bi comes from. And I guess they're talking about nomial. Nomial in statistics could probably come from the word nominal in statistics. In fact, nominal, yeah, it is nominal. So that word nominal means that it's not a number. And of course, sex is not a number, right? Sex is male or female. Those are not numbers. These are numbers, these are numbers, these are numbers. But this is not a number. And in statistics, nominal means data that is not numeric. Like this is numeric data, but non-numeric data is sometimes called nominal data. And this only has 2 possible values, and it's nominal. So they're calling it binomial. That's not a typical way to describe this, the type of data, though. And for example, survived would also be in their terminology. Binomial means it's nominal, or it's not a number to name, and there's only yes or no, so there's only 2. And I guess polynomial in this way means it's also, so passenger class, let's look at that. So you can see there's first class, but there's also, well, I guess there's other classes, second class, third class, and so on. So, but these are definitely not numbers, so they're going to use the word nominal or nomial, and then, but there's more than just 2 values. There's first, second, and third. So they're going to call that poly. Poly means many. So that's many-nomial or polynomial. Okay, so that's a little bit peculiar. And I guess if you're using RapidMiner, you have to learn this, but you wouldn't use exactly this set of terminology, generally speaking. Okay, so we've talked about the results, but if we want to go back to the previous panel, which was this one, you can click up here and you see the design, this part here. So if you want to go back to the results, you can go to here, and we saw that you can look at the data, you can look at the statistics, and there's also some pretty nice graphics that are available in RapidMiner. That's one part where RapidMiner definitely excels beyond Weka. Now, suppose that we want to look at this same data in Weka or maybe in Excel. So we could do an export. So export means to export what we have to probably some other data data set type. In other words, maybe, I don't know what the data looks like, but we might want to have an Excel file that has the data. And so what you can do is you can go to the operators. This is a little bit strange way to export. I looked in here, I didn't see export processes. But so anyway, you go to the operators and you look for export, and I saw one called Write Excel. So I double clicked that, and that put that here, and it actually automatically connected to here, I think. It doesn't seem like it did, but and then it gave me some errors when I tried to run it. When I tried to run it, it gave me some errors because I didn't have this connected to here, and also I didn't have the location where I wanted the file to go. So I fixed those, kind of gives you clues about how to fix them. And then I clicked here, and it wrote and made an Excel file for me. And it tells me that the location of the Excel file is here, which is in my sort of main folder on my computer. So I went and checked for that, and I can see it here. So now this is an Excel file, and here it is. This is the same data. It's in Excel. So suppose I want to open this up in Weka. So first of all, I think I should save this as a CSV file. So let's try that. Save it as a CSV file. Here. So it's a kind of simplified Excel file. Let's save that. And then let's see if it's here. And here it is. Okay, now I want to put this in a location that's easily accessible to Weka. Well, I guess I don't have to do that actually. Let's go to Weka. And let's close this one and go back to the other interface. And let's go back to the original interface, this one. And let's try and open that in here. So I guess I have to go up here. Okay. So I want here, I have to say the type of file that it is. It's a CSV file. So there it is. So I can open this in Weka just as well. And I can see the same set of variables. Now this is a different, it doesn't look like a spreadsheet anymore. But this is how Weka, the basic view, would open up the same kind of data. Okay, so back to RapidMiner. If we want to get rid of this, you can right-click on it and delete it. And we're back to the original configuration. Okay, let's go to the next process, rather the next part of the tutorial. So congratulations, halfway there. So we can review that operators perform some action. You can connect operators together to build a process. We did that briefly with the one I just deleted. To see the output of an operator connected to the res port here. Running the process performs all operators and automatically shows the result. Okay, so we can go to the next tutorial.